Hi everyone in History of Graphic Design. Welcome to week number 4. Three important things to go over real quick in this video. I want to discuss the differences between fine art and graphic design, talk a little bit about the word modern that came up this week, and then start to talk about the final term paper and how to navigate what's going to come up in week number 5. So let's take them in order. So when this class first started, especially for those of you who have taken other college classes before, you might have found some of the material to be kind of familiar, like maybe you've heard some of it in sociology classes or even other history classes dealing with maybe history of painting and things like that. So what happens is, we go back to how early man started communicating, and then that can be spun off into sociology and the invention of the printing press with Gutenberg and other movable type in China and so on. But where this class starts to become unique to graphic design is pretty much when we start talking about things like typography. And so now this class becomes more and more unique to graphic design. However, to get some of the points across and the movements associated with design, which are also associated with architecture and also associated with fine art, there still are some parallels that come up. But the reason I'm talking about this is I want to make sure that by the time you get out of this class, you really understand that there is a difference, a great difference between just graphic design and fine art. And also when you write your term papers, I want them to clearly sound like you're writing from a graphic design class, not from a fine art class. So what are some of the key differences, like in just real layman's terms? Typically, graphic design will have image and type, and it's for a client. Now, fine art can be just for the artist. It never has to be explained. Some people might interpret it some way, some people might interpret it another way. But graphic design, 99% of the time, has a client, therefore it has a target audience, and therefore a distinct, clear message needs to come about. So if you just kind of go with that and say, okay, graphic design is going to have a target audience, it's going to have a clear message, you're almost good there. But let's just talk about some subtle differences that could come up. And the other thing is that graphic design will have a client. So that's the first one, is sometimes graphic designers do things just to be like good people, like maybe a race relations poster that's very conceptual, and the graphic designer just wants to get that out just because they like the message. Maybe something anti-war poster, something like that the person just feels like, hey, too much war, I'm going to get something out there because I feel like I need to get my message across. But other than that, graphic design has a client. Somebody hires the graphic designer to get their message across. Graphic design usually has image and type. Now, the caveat there might be that the type is part of the image. So you see a poster that is nothing but type, but usually in that case it would be used in such an interesting way that the type becomes the image or part of the image, and the rest of the type helps just to get the message across. Now, one area where things can get a little bit gray is, do fine artists ever have image and type? And if you think about it long enough, you'll come up with a couple examples probably in your mind. Probably the most famous would be Andy Warhol. And like, for example, the Campbell soup cans were actual, mimics of the soup can with all the graphic writing information on there. Also, Barbara Kruger is another example. She did very graphic posters. But they are fine artists because that work that they did is not for a particular client, and it can be interpreted in a multitude of ways. So those are some things to just kind of keep in mind as you journey through the rest of this class. Okay, the word that came up this week was modern in talking about the typeface that Bodoni and Didot are famous for, that modern look to the typefaces. Now, the reason that I'm bringing this up is the word modern, when it comes to design and art and architecture, is very problematic. Just think if you walk into someone's house and you say your house looks very modern. What do you mean? You could mean that it looks like a typeface that was designed back in the 1700s, right? Very clean, crisp, modern. You could mean that it looks like art and design movements that were popular back in the 1950s. So the problem is, what happens is whenever something looks crisp, clean, new, people start calling it modern, and then they just keep calling it modern. And 50 years goes by, well, in this case 70 years for the art movement, hundreds of years for the typeface, and it creates a real problem. So as a designer, for those of you who are designers, my suggestion is, when you mean it looks like now, use the word contemporary. That usually gets you out of trouble. Although I was on this Chicago architectural tour, and the person that was narrating the tour hinted that they're starting to call certain architecture movements contemporary. Now, if that doesn't make things super, super confusing, I hope that that was just that person saying it and that that's not the truth. But some of you probably know, and if you want to email me through Canvas and let me know, that would be very interesting to me if anyone's ever heard that as an art movement, because then I'm confused as to what we're going to call stuff that looks like now. And if we call it now, then people will start using that word, and that will become an art term. Okay, so enough about that. Let's move on to the final term paper. So I'm going to go into Canvas and show you how to get started for next week, week number 5, on the final term paper, because there is something due, which is a quiz. Okay, so here I am in Canvas. I turned on student view so it'll look as much like what you're seeing. Go to modules. Now keep in mind we're in week number 4 right now, so this is the stuff that you're working on right now. But I have made week number 5 available so that if you want to take a look at this, while you're watching or just after you're watching this video, you certainly can. So if you go to the what's due part, you can see that there is, in addition to what you normally have there, the review quiz and the discussion question, you also have the final term paper preparation, which culminates with a quiz. So how do you get to all that? Well, if you just kind of follow through with the modules, everything is pretty much sequential for you in there. So I'm going to go to the final term paper assignment and just want to point out a couple things. So this is the first that you'll see of the final term paper as far as the modules go. And what I did was I put, please start by clicking on this link. And so what's going to happen is every time something is mentioned in the modules in the coming weeks, I will have this link that you can go to. Rather than post the whole thing, it'll just keep everything nice and short. But when you want all the details on the term paper, you click here. So read through this. Don't pay attention to these due dates yet. In fact, I'll try to go in there and clean those up so that they make more sense for us. But the due dates will be, of course, posted in with the modules. And like I said, anything that's due from now through week number 5, I should have cleaned up before you're even watching this video. But the important things is that you'll be writing a 2 to 3 page paper that is an analysis of your chosen pair of designers. And those are shown down below. Here they are right here. So you're going to pick one of these 6 choices here, and that's what you're going to write about. Now, all you really have to worry about this week is just really getting the basics of the term paper, what a term paper is, and then I would pick your topic this week, but you don't have to present what your topic and your thesis is going to be until week number 6. So the important thing this week is that you read through all this, make sure you understand it. Email me with any questions right here through Canvas, but watch this video that's posted in here, and as you watch it, I would have a piece of paper handy or Word open or whatever, and write down the answers to the quiz questions, because they are going to be literally presented in this video, and then you just simply take the quiz. So back into modules, you can see that in week number 5, after what I just showed you, the final term paper assignment, there is this final term paper quiz. So you take that just like the other quizzes, but you can only, you're not allowed multiple attempts on the questions or anything like that. As long as you watch this video, which is embedded right here again, took good notes, you'll be able to answer the questions immediately. Okay, that's all I have for you this week. Let me know if you have any questions, and we will talk soon.